Okay, so now let's talk about attribution rules. These are some major tax avoidance rules. The slides are in the section on property income. And a main resource for you, I think, would be the income tax folio. These rules are very technical, and you can get a lot of information from the Government of Canada, from other resources. So I just want to kind of go over the idea, and your textbooks and whatnot, the problems I've assigned take you to the kind of, I guess, the level you're expected to know. And the competency map, you're not expected to go into great depth on these. You have to know who's not at arm's length. And there's various rules about that and whether you're related, GTH, depending on the different rules and what you're looking at. We want to start by understanding that Section 69 tells us that all transactions have to be at fair market value. So one of the things that you want to be careful of is anytime we're dealing not at arm's length, the government assumes that it's possible that you're manipulating, that you're trying to reduce your tax rate with someone who has paid low tax, or trying to get income into their hands because they pay low tax, various, whatever manipulations you might be doing. So the government's always suspicious, okay? If you're not at arm's length. And arm's length, they just think about it. How close are you willing to get to someone? That's the idea, that if you're willing to get real close, you might be willing to manipulate. And again, there's rules about affiliated, not at arm's length, related, controlled, etc., in the tax law to prevent suspicious or inappropriate, from the government's point of view, tax manipulation. All right. So Section 69 says it's got to be at fair market value. And we want to realize that the adjustments they'll make under 69 are only one-sided. So let's say that you are in a, say, 55% tax bracket. So you decide to sell an appreciated item to your son, and the fair market value of that item is 10,000. Your cost of that item is 3,000. So you would, if you actually sold it, there's a appreciation here that would be taxable of 7,000. Now, whether it's capital gain or whatever it might be. So you sell it to your son for proceeds of, say, 5,000. So in your mind, okay, now you'll pay tax on 2,000, and your son can pay tax on the other 5, and maybe he's in a very low tax bracket. What the tax law is going to do is say that your selling price is in fact 10,000. So you're going to have the gain. You can't avoid the gain. But it's a punishment section. When I say it only adjusts one side, be careful, because the ACB, the cost to your son, is only going to be the 5,000 he paid for it. So if he sells it for 10, he's going to pay tax on another 5. So the total tax is 12,000 on something that only got a value at 10. So not the tax, but the total taxable income is 12,000. So be careful. Like, everything needs to be at fair market value is the first thing. The next thing you want to understand is the attribution rules. And these are essentially there to prevent income splitting related to passive income. In other words, this is the income. There's no activity involved here. This is investment activity. So there's no employees. Nobody's actually doing anything. And what we're looking at here is, let's say that you, again, just give your son, $10,000. All right. Now, the first thing that happens is that gift, if you gave your son appreciated property, that gift would be a sale at fair market value. All right. And let's assume your son is 12. These rules only apply if you look at the details. for under 18. So, and your son buys a bond that has interest income of 500 each year. That interest income is taxed in your hands. It's attributed back to you. It's called attribution. It's attributed to the original taxpayer. All right. So essentially, all these rules are for is to prevent what the government considers undue transfers of income from a high income taxpayer to a low income taxpayer. Now, understand that capital gains won't attribute. If your son takes that 10,000, buys stock, the dividends would be attributed to you, attributed to the original taxpayer. Any capital gain on the sale would not. So there is potential here still for some future planning that would be valuable. But basically, any income from the property, the income, is going to be attributed to the original owner until the child gets old enough that this is no longer an issue. But even if the child is older than 18 or the non-arm's length party, the attribution can apply if the motive for the activity or the transaction is tax related. So you can see very complex transactions related to this family activity of trying to make sure everybody has enough income to at least be tax-free under the basic personal exemption credit. And if you ever actually become practicing in tax, you'll need to perhaps look at more complex elements of this because it can get a little crazy with some of the things that people try to do. But basically back to that issue recognition, that we want to make sure that we're thinking, okay, if I see something that looks like maybe something's not right here, it just seems like an awfully clever way of avoiding things, you might want to think about investigating it because there's a good chance that there's something in the tax law that'll stop it. And again, if nothing else, the general anti-avoidance rule might. So this sort of thing, tax planning, is possible, but you have to make sure that there is economic substance, basically.